Okay, Second Thessalonians. So this morning I'm very hopeful. We are usually right on the nose, so I'm hoping we don't go over. But if you do, I'm forewarning you just briefly. So we're looking at Second Thessalonians today. We're talking about in the next couple of weeks about the Antichrist and talking about who he is, what he does, and I would say as we begin this morning, we're even going to talk a little bit about some of the, I won't say funny, but some of the predictions of who the Antichrist is, what people have said through the years and whatnot. So 2 Thessalonians chapter number 2 is where we're at this morning. We're going to look there in a moment. So I've got a couple of articles I'm going to share with you, and I'll just read them, not in length, but just to give you an idea. 7 most popular contenders for the title Antichrist. This one in November of 2012, right after the election. So this is more of a slant that would be against evangelical Christians. On the Sunday before the election, Pastor Robert Jeffers, senior pastor at First Baptist Dallas, said, quote, that if President Obama was reelected, his victory would lead to the reign of the Antichrist. Quote, I want you to hear me tonight. I'm not saying that President Obama is the Antichrist. I'm not saying that at all. One reason I know that he's not the Antichrist is the Antichrist is going to have much higher poll numbers when he comes, said to laughs. Quote again, President Obama is not the Antichrist, but what I am saying is this. The course he is choosing to lead our nation is paving the way for the future reign of the Antichrist. So this writer, his name is Joe Carter, had said, well, let's see who the 7 most popular candidates for Antichrist would be through the years. Number 1, the Pope. He's the all-time contender, or maybe it's not necessarily just the individual, but the papacy. Martin Luther, John Calvin, Cotton Mather, William Tyndale, many other Protestants, as this guy said, have called the Pope the Antichrist. 2, Nikolai Carpathia. This was a fictional character in the Left Behind series, so he mentions that. Nero. Many Bible scholars believe that the number of the beast was a reference to the Emperor Nero, whose name in Greek, when transliterated into Hebrew, retains the value of 666. So this guy is saying that. Hitler. And he didn't even elaborate. He just said, for obvious reasons. These are people that were called or thought of to be the Antichrist. There was a tie for 5th place, Henry Kissinger or Gorbachev. During the 70s and the 80s, Secretary of State for Nixon and Ford administrations topped the most likely to be the Antichrist list. And then, of course, you have Mikhail Gorbachev. Some people even said, quote, the strange birthmark was considered an obvious sign that Gorbachev wore the mark of the beast. I mean, we look back at this. Number 6, Napoleon. The Tsar Alexander of Russia called Napoleon the Antichrist, the enemy of God, because he liberated the Jews. Number 7, the American president. Every American president since Washington has been suspected of being the one to usher in the end times. This guy said here, let's go down here, FDR, JFK, Nixon, Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, and Obama have all been named to be part of various organizations. The one exception to the rule, this guy says, is Gerald Ford. Despite being a world leader during the height of the 70s, it's unlikely anyone ever considered him a serious contender of the Antichrist. Kind of a slam on Ford, for whatever reason. And another article, just put it this way, there was Nero, Hitler, Frederick II, said of Pope Gregory, Napoleon. This man, historian Bernard McGinn, a friend of Samuel Johnson's, was always happy to cite evidence of the French Revolution's Antichrist-like character culminating in Napoleon, whose name she believed meant the destroyer. Reagan, in the 80s, the beast recovered from a mortal wound, they said, and it caused quite a stir when Reagan, each name having 6 letters, was shot and survived. You remember where you were when Reagan was shot. I remember. Gorbachev and then John Paul II. This person said of John Paul II, this man will be increasingly called upon to bring peace to a troubled world. His recovery from a deadly wound directed world attention and admiration to him. And like those before him, he would seemingly like to establish authority over the holy hill of Zion. There's a lot of stuff. And the one, though, that took the cake for me is this one. And this person is written in this June of 2020. And it says, "The death of an Antichrist, Donald John Trump and Antiochus IV Epiphanes." This is written by Alston Lawson on Love, Death, and Socialism. And he references Hal Lindsey. He references, this guy is, I don't know if he's a believer, but he says a lot of crazy stuff in here. But he says Trump is the Antichrist in this. And I printed it off here. And of course, where he refers to, he does start out in the Bible with 1 John, 2 John, Daniel, which we're going to look at today, but then he goes to the book of the Maccabees. And that's kind of where he gets it. A lot of he's done some prolific historical research, but he basically says, as we're going to see in time to come here, that Trump is the guy that is going to bring in the tribulation. And, from Nero to the Pope to Hitler, Gorbachev with that thing on his head, whatever. There's a lot of kooky stories out there about who the Antichrist is. And our job, much like with the rapture or the return of Christ, is not to set a date or to, I won't say not to name a person, not to name a personality. Dr. DeYoung, when he came to our church in Connecticut, I think he came 3 times and did a little prophecy conference. And I remember the second time Dr. DeYoung came to our church, during one of the Q&As on a Sunday afternoon, he, as is his custom, he stands down front and he has his bag with him and he's there speaking, and someone asked a question about the Antichrist, and he pulled out a newspaper and several newspapers, and he said, "I believe the one that fits the bill the most," I arrived here in 14, this had to be in 11 or 12, and he pulled out a paper on the front, and it had, he said this here before, Tony Blair, who was the former British Prime Minister, and he's given reasons why he believed that is the case. A lot of people don't see that. Everyone has an opinion about who it is. Everyone has an opinion about when the rapture might be. If anything were to happen, we could truly imagine 2020 being the year. But for the Antichrist in particular, we're going to see in this lesson and the next 2 lessons, we're going to talk about what the Bible says about this person, the revealing of the Antichrist. Will we know him? Do we know him? Who is he? Why is it important? Who did these people think it was? And when we look at the Bible, it's good to put it in the context, because there are a lot of people that are saying a lot of things. Whether it's the world's going to end in 1988. I even read a bunch yesterday and the last week on Y2K. And some of the predictions about Y2K, we're 20 years beyond Y2K. Do you remember that? And one writer said it is going to be some computer-generated thing coming in. And I'm reading some of these articles from 1999 that were predicting the end of the world in 2000, and it didn't happen. One other article I'll point out that I didn't print off, and I've heard this drumbeat quite a bit, is that Recep Erdogan, he is the president, the leader of Turkey, that he is the Antichrist. I've heard that repeatedly from preachers, from prophecy people, from other ones. Now, again, he's leading. It was one of the most forward-thinking Muslim countries that was somewhat westernized. Recently, this summer, they just turned the largest or the oldest church back into one of the largest mosques in the world. Apparently, he, with interviews from other people have said, this guy is legit. There's something about him. And again, when you look at what the Bible, we're going to see this. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying Erdogan. I've always watched him because he's a figure that is in world, he's on the stage. He's a big player, just like Trump is a big player. But apart from all of that, who is this guy? Who is he? Why is it important? And for these people in particular in 2 Thessalonians, they were afraid. They were being persecuted by someone. If we were being persecuted by our governor, let's say our president, think of the worst person to be president of the United States. Think of that person, whoever that might be. Maybe it's a past politician, or it's someone who has run and failed, someone who has been there, someone who is running now. Think about that person. And think about them turning the screws on the people in the country and openly coming into services and grabbing Christians out of church or believers out of worship, knocking on doors, grabbing Bibles, burning them in the cities. I mean, that we look at that like that's not America. That will never happen. And yet many Germans thought that about their own nation when they were doing all of these things. This would never happen. Of course, think of that. These people were in times where the leader of the free world was a god, little g. He was to be worshipped as a god. You were to look at him as that, the supreme leader. And I think it's funny that many of our politicians, sometimes they feel like they can do no wrong. You can't question the great and supreme leaders, whether they be a congressman or woman, or they be a senator, they be someone that's on the Capitol Hill, whatever, wherever they are, they're in a state office. They think you're the little people. They haven't gone so far as to kill people. But in this day, the Christians literally had believed this false teaching, or were led astray by some false teachers, a false letter by Paul, and said, you've been left behind. And now you're just waiting for the second coming. So just buckle up. Well, this letter was written to encourage them. Look at chapter 2, super long introduction. Now we beseech you, we beg you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and by our gathering together. So we're all going to be getting together in the coming of the Lord Jesus. That ye be not soon shaken in mind or be troubled. By the way, wouldn't it be so encouraging to receive this letter from Paul, now knowing, well, he's still here. You know, he's still here. That you be not soon shaken in mind or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter, as from us, as the day of Christ is at hand. The day of Christ, meaning, here it is, we're in the tribulation. We've been left. So we're just holding on. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first. Now, for the last several weeks, we talked about what is the falling away? That word, apostasia, is it the rapture, where there's a literal gathering taken out, or is it apostasy in general? And we gave views on that. The falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed. So that day, so the day of Christ, the day of the Lord. So before all of that occurs, this person has to be revealed as who he is. The son of perdition. Who is he? Who opposeth and exalted himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped. Boy, he's got a big ego. So that he is God, sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. At this point, the temple has not been destroyed, but it's coming. It's coming at this time. And ultimately here, he's writing to them saying, this man, this person, when he's revealed, he wants to be worshipped. He views himself as higher than God, and he proclaims himself to be God while sitting in a religious temple or a place of worship. Verse 5, remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things? And now ye know what withholdeth, that he might be revealed in his time. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, shall destroy with the brightness of his coming, even him, whose coming, again, the Antichrist, is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders, with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. So he said a whole lot here about who he is, when he's coming, what has to happen, and what people will believe, which is very sad. So look at your introduction. An important question that many Christians often ask is, are we living in the last days or the end times? That's a yes and a no, right? Because Paul believed that, and yet here we are 2,000 years later reading this. So yes and no. Many prophecy teachers believe that shortly before Christ's return, the world would experience an increase in the speed of travel coupled with an explosion of information based on Daniel 12:4. And doing some research here, a lot of them, they could never imagine the internet. I mean, my grandparents, your grandparents, you could never imagine really talking to someone on your phone, you know, looking at them in the face. You remember Dick Tracy would do that, but you could imagine certain things, but it's so further than what we could ever think. Dr. Ryrie, Charles Ryrie said this, quote, "As the end approaches, people will travel about seeking to discover what the future holds. Knowledge and information will increase. It will just explode." Well, we're there today. You know, we are there today. They're talking about being on Mars in 2 years. I mean, I know the moon landing and you've got other things that happen, but there's so much that we can see into the furthest reaches of space, going to places on our earth and seeing things. It's just amazing. So these first century believers were asking the same questions that many are asking today. Are we in the end times? Is Jesus returning? Is this the very end? Well, yes and no. Because we know the end times technically is not the end. It's not the end. We know what the end is. For us, the end is actually just the beginning. I mean, that play on words. Although Paul taught that they should be ready for Christ to come, false teachers argued that Jesus had already returned. So he pulled a kind of a Jehovah's Witness, a wool over their eyes, who came in 1914, 1915, 1918, 1920, 1930. I mean, Jesus came a bunch of times, but finally, I guess they said he just was invisible when he came back, and he gathered all of those people there. So heaven's full, but you work to make this earth a better place, and you get to stay here. Wonderful. Well, Paul is trying to remind them that, listen, you don't need to be worried. Don't be confused. There was gloom. So Paul provided additional evidence to assure them that Christ had not returned. So today and next week and possibly the following week, we're going to examine the Antichrist, who he is, where he is from, and what will he do. So don't give your opinion. Don't share it openly. But how many of you have an opinion or have had an opinion of who the Antichrist is sometime during your life? Raise your hand. You've had an opinion of that. Okay? Good. Only 3 of us of who that might be. Wonderful. Everyone has an opinion, as noted by numerous articles, even to our current president, to heads of state, to little-known dictators in parts of the world. Well, Paul writes them, as we've seen, number 1, he reminds them about the timing of the day of the Lord. He says, don't be worried, be prepared, not only about the timing, but he says it's preceded by the falling away. We gave the 2 views, a physical departure, a capturing away, or a spiritual departure. And we gave the views on that and what that meant. Now, see here, it's preceded by the Antichrist. Now, I've given you a litany here. And some of these, we're going to turn in our Bibles and look at these, but really it's for your consumption to do study. And then the reason I had to break it down, I've got another list from A to K. Also, it's almost 26. I wanted to break it down so you could look at that and see from the Bible what it says about his identity, about his character, and about really his destruction. So first of all, his character. The Antichrist, or the man of sin and the lawless one, will reject God's law and set up his own. So this is out. and his law is in. He is a law to himself. I will do what I want. He's called the lawless one. Are we seeing lawlessness in our streets? Yeah, we never thought we would see that. The man of sin could just step right in. Anarchy, chaos is what he loves. B, Paul described him as the son of perdition, meaning he is destined. His end is destruction, the son of perdition. He is heading for destruction, even if he's self-deceived. My kids often ask this, if the devil knows the Bible, doesn't he know he's going to lose? Doesn't he know this? Well, you ever try to talk to someone who's convinced they're right and they just believe it? You can't convince them of the sky is blue, they think it's purple, and they will argue with you about that. You cannot convince the father of lies who has believed his own lies. He is deceived. He thinks he's going to win. But the Antichrist is the son of perdition, meaning he's just a step away from destruction. C, the Antichrist will oppose God and exalt himself above God or anything that is worshipped as God. Can you imagine if the President of the United States made a law and it was passed that any religious symbol had to come down and his picture had to go up? Just name any president, like I said, just name any president. It could be the current, a past president, or a new president. You take those down, crosses are down, images of Jesus are down, the Virgin Mary, whoever, whatever. My picture goes up. On Sundays, when you come to church, you see me. You worship me. We would be like, there's no way. You kidding me? You can't make me do that. We're not going to do it. Well, this guy will oppose God and exalt himself above God or anything worshipped as God. He wants to be God. Ultimately, he's going to get what he wants. He's going to get it because the people will adore him. D, he will sit in the temple of God, setting himself up so that people will worship him. And in the day and age in which we live, people are looking for a hero. They're looking for someone. There's plenty of villains in the world, but who is going to save us from all of this? Now, kind of tongue-in-cheek, there's a conservative writer that put an article. He just put a tweet and with a little article attached to it. He says, it's kind of funny, and it is funny. There's an old Charlton Heston movie. What is this called? Is it The Omega Man? I can't remember what it's called. But a new movie that was remade called I Am Legend. And so this writer referenced this movie and said, wouldn't it be interesting that Trump, who is hated, had the virus, and then he has this, and through his blood and his plasma, everybody gets, the antibodies, and all 50 states vote for him. And it was tongue-in-cheek. It was a joke, but boy, you could see people just, here is someone, the Antichrist, who sets himself up, and people are like, yes, we love him. And a lot of people would look at these personalities or presidents or world leaders, boy, they're hated. But the Bible says of the Antichrist, as we're going to see, that it's strength through peace. And that the rider on the white horse in the book of the Revelation says that he comes and he has a bow, but there's no arrows. So he talks with big words, but he has nothing really to back it up. He is empowered by, energized by Satan, but there's no real strength behind what he has. So he advances his agenda through peace, which makes it even more likable, more deceptive, more easily deceived. So now let's look at his identity, and this is where we're at. We have 11 minutes, and if we get through here, fine. If we don't, we'll take time because I don't want to shortchange God's word. So there's a couple of verses I want you to look at. So his identity, turn to Revelation chapter 13. So Revelation 13, and let's talk about this a little bit. And it's always interesting to study either the rapture or the Antichrist because none of us have a clue. So things we don't know about, we're like Jacques Cousteau of prophecy. We will explore, we will find out, we will discover, and then at the end of our journey, we're just like, we haven't gotten any closer. Well, Revelation chapter 13, note verse 1, and I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea. having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns. Upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth is the mouth of a lion. And the dragon, Satan, gave him his power and his seat and great authority. Let me just throw in a side note here. This is what we're going through on Sunday nights. We're going through Daniel. We're going to be getting to this soon, and just how it's working out, that this guy's coming in, and you can see already that as John's trying to describe him, he's like, this is unlike anything I've ever seen. Verse 3, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast. Like, wow, they were in awe. And they worshiped the dragon, which gave power to the beast. That's weird. They're worshiping the devil while worshiping this guy. So literally, we think of devil worshipers. It's going to be nothing like that. The whole world will be devil worshipers and not even truly know it. And it says here that the whole world will wonder, and they will worship him, and they will say, who is like unto the beast? This man, this leader. Who's able to make war with him? Who is able to stand in his glory? There was given unto him a mouth, speaking great things, blasphemies. And power was given unto him to continue 40 and 2 months. So not just blasphemies like this guy curses a lot, but blasphemies meaning blasphemies against God. Blasphemies against the God of heaven. Now, we've got to think of the time frame in which this is. Now, if this guy is now set up in his office or in his palace or in whatever it's at that he's leading from, he knows where the believers are. They've been taken out. He is cursing at the heavens to God. Literally, the world is, they're acceptable with this. He will set himself, there is no, look at this, there's no God. Contrast that with what we heard the last couple of weeks from our Daniel lessons, where Daniel said, there is, to Nebuchadnezzar, there is a God in heaven. In the presence of a man who thought he was God, surrounded by little g gods, magicians, astrologers, false teachers, and he says, there is a God in heaven. This man will exalt himself against. He will swear and blaspheme the very people in heaven. It's amazing. And it's so true, because Satan began in heaven and was kicked out of heaven. I don't know about you. Have you ever been kicked out of somewhere? Maybe your parents said, get out of the house, get out of your room. Maybe that's about it. Maybe you've never been kicked out of a Chili's, or if you get kicked out of a Cracker Barrel, I don't know how that happens. Or McDonald's. Maybe some of you have been kicked out of some places. I don't know. But maybe over time you're allowed to go back. Or just say an apology, just make things right. Satan was kicked out of heaven because he desired and attempted to take the throne of God with a third part of the angelic host, who would be the fallen angels. These demons, these devils, these people that chose, they made their choice. It's too late for them. They made their choice. And Satan is out, never to gain entrance in the way of redemption again. So what does he have to say? He hates God. Anything that recognizes itself or aligns itself with godlike or godliness or worship of God. Verse 6, he opened his mouth to speak blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. I hate all of you. I mean, not just that, he's just blaspheming. This man he's a blasphemer. And it was given, verse 7, unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds, tongues, and nations. He is the ruler of all the earth, not just Turkey or America, England, Africa, the UN, over every nationality, over every language, every landmass. His reach will be far. You remember back in, the saying was, I believe, the sun never set on the British Empire. There was a point where that was the case, because where they traveled, their reach was far. But their reach, you think of it today, the reach of the Antichrist can reach right into your home. can hear you directly. Can you say Alexa? Can you say iPhone or whatever, or app, even your vehicles? All the Antichrist can reach in the technology we have today, and he will be one that wants worship. Verse 8, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him. Well, that's contrasted with those who refuse the mark. But here are some, he says, really all. That's giving you this idea here that he's going to be accepted. He's going to be loved. He's going to be adored. He's going to be followed. All that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. So these people are deceived. We just read 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. People that go after him, that worship him, that take the mark from him, they're doomed. They are damned for destruction. Verse 9, if any man have an ear, let him hear. So his identity, 4 or 5 minutes. So the world, letter A, let's just look at a few of these. The world will be prepared in advance. This is, to me, the most telling. We've said this through the years. You've heard people talk about this. The world being prepared. The world is prepared right now. Are we not? The world is looking. There's some writers even from CNBC, MSNBC, CNN, liberal, and even some that would call themselves conservative. We need international intervention in these elections. We can't have this president be reelected. We need some help from the outside. One article this weekend said we just need not a violent overthrow from an outside entity, but we need an overthrow of our government. We just need to... We can see the world is ready for this man, whoever he is, to come. Galatians 4:4, let's contrast. And what I've done on these points, you'll see two little kind of hyphens there that's just going side by side. One is referencing who Christ is and how Christ came. The other is referencing the Antichrist. The world will be prepared in advance. When Jesus came, note Galatians 4:4, when the fullness of time was come, God sent forth his Son, made of woman, made under the law. So Jesus came at the right time. The world was prepared. Even though they overlooked him, they didn't worship him, and they crucified him. The Antichrist, he's coming. We saw it 2 Thessalonians, verse 7. We read it. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. The world will be prepared. It's getting stirred up. And then when he steps out on the scene, this is how we fix things. The world is just going to be in love with this man. B, the Antichrist is revealed at the right time. We just read Jesus came at the right time, was revealed. John chapter 1 talks about. But 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 6, we read this. And now ye know what withholdeth, that he might be revealed in his time. He will be revealed at the right time. Letter C, he will have a sudden appearance. He's waiting in the wings. 1 John 4 verse 3, this is speaking of Jesus. Every spirit that confesseth not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is not of God. And that is the spirit of Antichrist, whereof ye have heard that it should come, and even now already is it in the world. Jesus came onto the scene. I mean, just like that. It was fulfilled. The world was prepared. It was at the right time. But the Antichrist, he will step on the scene at just the right time. And it will be a sudden appearance. In fact, Peter says in verse 5, chapter 5, verse 8 of 1 Peter, that the devil is a roaring lion. He's our adversary. He's seeking whom he may devour. So he is kind of a stealthy, sneaky adversary. Letter D, he fulfills the Daniel prophecy. And that's in Daniel 7:23. Look at this. It says this. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth. In fact, Pastor Chris talked about this, and we'll go into this further, which shall be diverse or different from all kingdoms. So this last kingdom of the Antichrist will be different from every other empire that's ever been that was shown to Nebuchadnezzar. And this kingdom will devour the whole earth, or all the other kingdoms, and tread it down and break it in pieces. This will be the one to rule them all, so to speak. This guy is going to suddenly appear. he will fulfill Daniel's prophecy. We see that in Revelation chapter 17. And it says this, the 7 heads are 7 mountains on the which the woman sitteth. There are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, 1 is, the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he will continue a short space, the Antichrist. So 2 minutes. Let's just look at letter E and we'll stop here. What is his ethnicity? Now, Pastor Chris and I have talked a little bit about this, and some of you have, there's some great ones. There's a new rise in thinking that he's Islamic. There's a lot of people lately who have talked about it. I'd say probably, obviously, since 2001, the last 20 years, there's been more of a resurgence of, well, maybe he's Islamic. Islam has their own version of the biblical Antichrist, and that would be the Mahdi. And it's kind of interesting that some have even mentioned, Recep Erdogan, many over there have said, we have seen the Mahdi. The Mahdi is here. The Mahdi is alive and well, and we have seen him. Well, the Mahdi is just the biblical Antichrist because everything that he does is exactly what he will do. I'm not convinced of a Muslim Antichrist. Some even say he'll be Jewish because therefore for him to be Jewish, he will have to be accepted by the Jews. And we're going to talk about this further. I've given some biblical grounds for you to study. This is like we did with the falling away. It's a rapture or it's an apostasy. Here's the popular view, and then we'll talk about this. Gentile ethnicity will rise within the revived Roman Empire. You see that verse 1 as we've looked at Daniel and also in Revelation. But note here, a widely held belief throughout church history and today is that the Antichrist will be of Jewish origin from the tribe of Dan. Dan is a tribe that is not noted or recognized, somewhat cursed for whatever reason. Most scholars agree that Daniel 11 speaks of Antiochus, a Gentile, typifying the future Antichrist. Now, we're just a couple minutes over. We're only going to do letter E and we'll be done. So I read to you Antiochus, who they say is this guy. It's Trump. But Antiochus was a literal figure who set himself up as, we could say, to be worshipped, but he carried through this. Daniel speaking future. This happened before the coming of Christ. I believe it was actually, I think it was 300 years before Christ is when Antiochus rose. Scripture pictures the Antichrist rising up out of the sea. Anytime that's mentioned, we read that earlier, when it's coming up out of the sea, it's talking about the sea of nations of which Israel would not be a part. I mean, they are a part of the nations, but the sea is always talking about Gentile. The nature of the times of the Gentiles, Luke 21, supports a Gentile Antichrist. Luke 21, in fact, I wrote that verse down. Let me pull it up here. Luke 21, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword, led away captive into all nations. Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So it's interesting. The tribulation is called the time of Jacob's trouble. It's to bring Israel back. It's not the time of the church's trouble and the times of the Gentiles. So putting that together, some support a Gentile Antichrist. Some have also said the most popular view of a Roman descent, where the one promoting a covenant with Israel is said to represent the revived Roman Empire that's going to come back. Since it was the Romans who destroyed Jerusalem and the temple, 2 last points. That the Antichrist is a Gentile ruler is the thrust of Revelation 17. The passage says that the beast is one of 7 kings, thus a Gentile or Roman ruler. He's a king. He is a leader. So with this popular view, it doesn't appear to be scriptural grounds. I mean, it's the inference of, well, for the Jews to accept him, but we've got to remember, it doesn't, well, let me put it in this way. The Bible says that he will confirm a peace with Israel. He'll do that for 7 years. And obviously because of that, they will revere him. They will look at him, whether it literally is in the place of he is our Messiah. They will know he is not the Messiah at the 3.5-year period. But there doesn't, other than that inference, appear to be scriptural grounds that he's of Jewish origin. It appears it's a Gentile. rising from the revived Roman Empire. So, there's a lot of debate on this, and I gave the most of my time in these points for this, but it's something in the next time we get together we're going to talk about. So, is the Antichrist alive today, and this is where we stop? I believe so. I mean, is the world ready? Yes. Will he suddenly appear? Yes. Will he have to have a plan? Yes. If we're out of here, you fill in the blanks. We have chaos now. Has the world been sitting back, waiting? Has the world descended this quickly? It was 6 months ago that they said 15 days to slow the spread. 6 months ago. Did you know that? That was 6 months ago. On Sunday morning, one of the gentlemen in the church, Ryan, Dennis, we were talking about the virus and things, and he works up at the base in Jacksonville. And I said, do you remember when I visited you in the hospital last year? Remember? He says, that was February. I'm like, what? That was February. He says, and I remember Saturday night at 9 o'clock, his wife texted me, Ryan's in the hospital. We don't know what it is. So I ran up to Middleburg, got up there to St. Vincent's, and he told me on Sunday, he says, you know what? It was the virus. He says, now we're finding out it was the virus. Because he was laying there, he was wheezing, having trouble. Allison on that side of the bed. I'm on this side of the bed. I brought a coffee for myself, and I'm sitting there talking to him. And he's just laying there. He says, maybe it's because of the years I smoked. Maybe it's because of, they're saying heart. They can't figure it out. But I said that to say this, a couple of things. 6 months has gone just like that. And look how rapidly this world has descended into chaos. And are we any closer to getting out of this? Florida is different for sure, but we're still feeling the effects of 15 days to slow the spread. Can you imagine a world leader coming in and mandating? We can't travel to certain places. I'd love to travel to New York to see friends, but I see what I see. The time is right. The Antichrist is ready. The question is, are we ready? Do we trust God's word? Can we depend on him? Let me quote the late, great president. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. We should not be afraid. God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind. Our belief, our hope, our confidence is built on Jesus Christ, his word, and it will never fail. We don't have to be afraid, so we can trust him. Dear Lord,